So in this video, we'll learn how to use linear functions and how to plot these on a graph, and then use that information to solve further. So let's start with the first term that we will work with, intercept. This just means where something cuts or intersects. So there are two important terms that we will work with, the x-intercept and the y-intercept. So the x-intercept is where the graph cuts the x-axis, cuts x-axis. And here, this cuts the y-axis. So if we had a graph and it's cutting the x-axis and the y-axis, for example, here and here, right? So this is where we have the x-intercept, and this point is your y-intercept. So how do we find these? At the x-intercept, y is always 0. So that's a piece of information you want to work with, okay? And at the y-intercept, x is always 0. So if you're given this equation, y is equal to 3x plus 1. Now if I put x as 0, what am I finding? I end up finding y-intercept. So let's plug in x as 0. What do we get? 3 times 0 plus 1. So y is 1. So the y-intercept becomes 1. So that's your first part. Now for the x-intercept, we'll put y as 0. So our equation is y is equal to 3x plus 1. So in place of y, let's put 0. And we can use SADMAP to solve this. So subtract 1, this cancels. And then divide 3. So you end up getting x as negative 1/3. So that's your first part. Now how to use this information if you were given a particular equation. So let's say if there's a student, let's change this, a student X that has $9 in his bank, okay? Now each week, he takes $1.50 for a snack. Okay, so now the amount remaining in his bank is given by this function. Fx is equal to 9 minus 1.5x. Now if we were to use the intercept method, so let's check. So if I put x as 0, where x is the number of weeks, let's use a different color. So number of weeks, so 0 week, right? So beginning, this is where we are beginning the graph. So what would f0 become? F0 would become 9 minus 1.5 times 0. So what do you end up getting? $9. So its starting amount is $9 at the beginning. Now, if I were to make fx as 0, I would get 0 is equal to 9 minus 1.5x, right? Then use SADMAP. Remember SADMAP. So we see a positive. Let's do the opposite. So -9, this cancels. And then let's divide -1.5. So what's x? X is 6. So 6 represents the weeks, so number of weeks. So in 6 weeks, all his money goes, right? So $9 in 6 weeks. So if we were to plot this, our graph would be like this. So $9, this is our amount. And our weeks would be over here, 6. And we will try to skip this negative part for these sections. And the reason is because you can't have a negative week, so it will start from 0. Similarly, you can't have negative dollars, so it will end up at 0. So this is the first part. Okay. For the slope. So the slope is defined as the rise divided by the run. Now, earlier in previous classes, I've defined this as delta x and this as delta y. So the slope given by the letter small m is defined as delta y over delta x, or rise divided by run. Or if you were to use a formula, then some books might state y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. Okay. Then parallel lines have same slope. Perpendicular lines have slopes that multiply to give you -1. Let's write product. Product of slopes. So m1 times m2 is -1. There are different forms to graph linear functions. There are different form of equations. The first one is point slope form. Which is y is equal to mx plus b. Then we have the standard form, which is ax plus by is equal to c. So if I have an equation like this, 2x plus 2y is equal to 10. If I were to do it on my TI-84 calculator, my restriction is I need y is equal to something. So can we make the subject using SADMAP? So let's make y the subject. So 2x plus 2y is equal to 10. Let's subtract 2x. Subtract 2x. So you get 2y is equal to 10 minus 2x. Then divide 2, divide 2. So divide 2 by everything. So you end up getting y is equal to 5 minus x. If you plug this into your calculator, you'll end up getting a graph like this. This is 5 minus x. Then applications using so this is important. If you're able to do this part, you should feel successful because of the fact that this is when it applies to real world mathematics, and you can write equations, and then those equations can help you find solutions and so on and so forth. So let's say a pizza company, right, is selling pizza, and let's say each pizza is $8 cost of pizza. And now for every topping, they charge an extra $2. So what would your total cost be? Now some people can just choose the pizza, right? So then that would be $8. But what if someone adds one topping? So what would that be? Plus 2, this is with one topping, right? So he ends up paying $10. What about 2 toppings? Then you would have total cost would be the $8 for the pizza plus 2 times 2, right? Because $2 each for each topping, and then you're getting 2 toppings. So that would become 8 plus 4, which becomes $12. What about 3 toppings? Eight plus 6 and 14. So you see a relationship. So when there was one topping, this was just 2. When there are 2 toppings, it becomes 4. And then 3 toppings, it becomes 6. What is constant? The 8. So if I were to write an equation for this, what would I get? So my cost would become 8 plus 2 times, and I can use any variable for the toppings. Let's say if I want to use t. So this would be my equation. If I wanted to write it in terms of a function, I could write it this way. ft is equal to 8 plus 2t. Same thing, right? So it's how I want to write it. So some questions will use the function method, some will write it in the equation form. Okay, now point slope form. So if they want you to write an equation in the point slope form, we need 2 things. We need m and we need b. So these are the 2 things we are looking for, m and b. Now some questions will give you the slope. Let's say if the slope is 3, right? And let's say if they give you a pair of coordinates. So let's say if they say the coordinates are 3 and 5, right? So these are the values of x and y. Let's plug in all this information in our equation. Y is equal to mx plus b. We know the slope m is 3, so that's here. And let's put in 5 and 3. So y is 5, yeah. the slope is 3, and even x is 3. Can we find b from here? So subtract 9, b is -4. So now that we found b, and we already knew m as 3, right? Let's plug in our answer. So y is equal to 3x minus 4. So this is your equation in point slope form. Now if they want you to use two points are given, right? So let's say these 2 points are given, and this coordinate is x and y, and this one is x1 and y1. And you can switch the positions. So what is the change in x? The change in x is x minus x1. What's the change in y? Y minus y1. Right? So if I were to find the slope from the slope formula, what do I get? M is equal to delta y divided by delta x, right? Now what's delta y? Y minus y1. What's delta x? X minus x1. So using SADMAP, I see division. What's the opposite of divide? Multiply. So I end up getting this thing. So what's our final value? It's y minus y1 is equal to m x minus x1. So we'll use this method where we'll insert values for x1 and y1, and we'll insert values for m. Okay? So this will be given to us. So like question. Let's say if there is a question, there's a slope as 3, and the two coordinates or one coordinate, however you want it. So let's even find the slope, okay? So for example, let's just take 2 points. Let's take 2 points. So 3, 6, and -3 and 0. So what's the change in y over here? So a change in y is between these two values, right? So you can do 0 minus 6 or 6 minus 0. Both things work. So let's do our slope. Our change is of 6. So I'm doing 6 minus 0. And let's take the change in x. So we are doing this with this. So 3 minus 3. So we get 6 over 6, which gives us the slope as 1. Now I want to use y minus y1 is equal to mx minus x1. So we can use any one of these as x1 and y1 and plug them here. Okay? We know the slope. We already know this. So we'll put that here. And x1 and y1 we'll plug in over here. So what's my equation? Add 6 to move it. So we get x plus 3. This is our answer in point slope form.